Welcome to the December meeting of the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. If you wish to speak, please see one of our staff outside and please sign in. Helps us coordinate who's speaking and also allows us to have contact information when we call.
So the proposed draft rule would create a new subsection 68D2.010 in Florida Administrative Code that states the intent of the designations. It would create a saltwater gamefish designation, the components of which would be no commercial harvest or possession, no sale or purchase, hook and line is the only gear, and no bag limit for captain and crew of for-hire vessels. The proposed rule would also create an elite designation of saltwater sport fish, the components of which would be no recreational or commercial harvest and possession, no purchase or sale, hook and line as the only allowed gear when targeting these fish. Essentially making sport fish catch and release only. Also, staff is holding public workshops next week via webinar on the definitions. These workshops will occur from 6 to 8 p.m. on December 10th and 12th. A presentation will be given and input will be gathered via a survey. The results of these workshops will be presented at the February Commission meeting. So staff recommends approving the proposed draft rule, creating gamefish and sportfish designations, and if approved and directed, staff will return for a final public hearing at the February Commission meeting in Orlando. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, and my other concern with this is, to me, this comes across like the listing process. And if we start in this listing process and putting a fish in here under those designations, doesn't this, because we try to get away from that listing process, and we try to talk about the management plan of something versus what it's called, and addressing the confusion. I guess I'm worried about the confusion of a sports fish category, and all of a sudden, and I think our chairman said it earlier, the state is full of sports fishermen. Well, does that mean those sports fishermen never keep a fish? That's the idea. Or I guess I'm looking for the bigger picture of advertising, or what we're looking for, when you say the protection of the fish. What's the big scale? Because my issue is it's going to curtail our management plan.
Let me take a stab at that, because in fairness to Jessica, and to you, Commissioner, and to each of you, I suspect that for me, personally, and what I do and where I come from, this is by far the most significant issue for me personally. And I also think that it's an opportunity for this commission as well to create a lasting legacy. That the idea, Commissioner, behind the designations as a threatened, endangered, and special concern, while they're adjectives, they're adjectives descriptive of a state of where they are in terms of sustainability. While this is indeed an adjective, we use these terms already. We loosely talk about sport fish. We loosely talk about game fish. We do treat snook different. We do treat redfish different. We recognize their value to a recreational fishery. We don't allow much of what we're proposing is already embodied in the way that we manage these fish. But like we said earlier when the previous speaker attributed my abundance reference, I think what it will allow us to do is to, in the management, recognize that the direction of management on these fish is not necessarily for sustainability but abundance. Recognizing that they have a significant economic and recreational role as opposed to a food source. And I think that it will send a signal to fishermen around the country and around the world that if we're a world-class fishing destination, fishing capital of the world, we're saying we take these species which are highly targeted, very serious, We've made a designation of sport fish, as other countries such as Belize and other places have already done, and manage these fish for abundance, where somebody can recognize and focus that they can come to the Keys or South Florida and target a grand slam, where they can come and sight fish for redfish. So that's kind of what the intent is, at least in my mind. I think there are a number of questions have been raised. I don't necessarily know that they're all challenges, but they're challenges that I think can be met. There's already been a lot of discussion with stakeholders. We're going to hear a lot today, but what I would like to do, if I could prevail on the commission, to consider just the designation of the categories. We can talk about the appropriateness for putting the fish in those slots at a subsequent meeting, but right now I'm laying out that I would like to see the commission just adopt the two categories for those reasons. So.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just blend in to the most important thing that was just said, and that is the economic impact in the state of Florida. We literally have an opportunity to, in this depressed economy that we're living in, to attract more business into the state of Florida, that fishermen, people working in the docks, it's huge. You take the guides, et cetera, everyone's depressed, and this gives us an opportunity to continue to expand marketing of the state of Florida. And I think underlying what you just said, there's a huge economic message to the importance of what we're doing here. So it's just reconfirming what Sherman said.
And we do have we have a lot of public comment, and we can have discussion, of course, after that.
Afternoon, Commissioners. Thanks again for the opportunity. As you have in past meetings, I usually talk my bullet points, but there's some points I wanted to make specifically and not forget today, so I apologize for the dryness and actually the statement I wrote earlier. As always, I commend the work that you've done. You've already faced a lot of pretty amazing challenges and adjusted very well. The group discussion was the latest example. But I see this as the Commission being poised to take a great step forward. For example, as already brought up this morning in the freshwater world, they already have Gamefish status, talking about photos and trophy status. But in saltwater, fish are either for commercial sale or no commercial sale. If you talk to someone, as it's already brought up by Pat Kelly, we really don't have a Gamefish, and that does make a difference. I think that by codifying recreational fisheries as gamefish and sportfish, the Commission will allow the fishery to be more easily managed, and also open the door for more effective research and assessment by FWRI biologists. For both regulatory and cultural reasons, for example, many of Florida's recreational fisheries are already catch and release, de facto catch and release. For example, 97% of snook are released after they're caught. They're not kept. So that fishery really is already catch and release. Bonefish is already catch and release out from others. Catch and release fisheries are more difficult to assess from a biological standpoint and also to manage because they don't provide the data upon which normal fisheries management relies. There are no dead fish on the dock to do the assessments. This means that new methods for assessing stock size, catch rates, and fishing effort are needed. And I can't speak for my colleagues at FWRI, but I do think that codifying gamefish and sportfish in the regulations will make it easier for them to develop the new fisheries assessment tools that are going to be required for fisheries management in the future. And it's not just in Florida, but every state is dealing with this in the saltwater world, as is the federal government, and I'm sure you're aware of that, the inability to assess fish that in many ways are catching those fisheries. In addition, although Florida is known as the fishing capital of the world, there is competition. And defining important fisheries as gamefish and sportfish makes Florida more competitive. For example, Belize has already made Bonefish Tarpon permit catch and release only, and they use that in the marketing literature to anglers who travel around the world and have a choice between Florida, Belize. The Bahamas also make bonefish recreational fishery catch and release only. Given that Florida's saltwater recreational fishery has economic impact in billions of dollars per year, And as a major part of the state's tourism marketing identity, I think codifying gamefish and sportfish also makes a lot of sense. Fishing capital of the world, being able to talk about gamefish and sportfish, and I think it makes a big difference. And I'm sure some of the guys who come up later will echo that point. It makes their marketing easier as well. So it's not, of course, the commission marketing. It's the individuals involved in the fishery who are doing the marketing. It's also worth noting, as Pat already said, that anglers and resource agencies from elsewhere are already watching what we're doing. They're waiting for Florida to lead the way. So I think that's also important. So in closing, I urge you guys to pass this draft rule, and then the discussions about which species go where, if species are designated as such at all, I think are more appropriate for the specific user groups that are involved in each of those fisheries, because the user groups are different. Rather than throw everything into one big basket, I think a great first step is to get the designation in, and then we can talk as we head into the permit in a very reasonable fashion and get something compromised with.
Right. Thanks, Aaron.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm Tony Grogan. I'm the owner of spearboard.com. It's the world's largest website for the sport of spearfishing. We have both commercial and recreational spearfishermen that are on that internet discussion board. And I flew up from West Palm Beach to present our interest, obviously, as everyone else is here, the Florida guides, etc. I think this is a big mistake. I think, as the Vice Chairman was indicating there, making a list, well, what will go on the list next? Oh, KDW, Kingfish, Dolphin, Wahoo. Oh, we got tournaments down in Florida. Oh, let's protect them. Let's throw them in the list. Let's go around the science. And as you said earlier, Chairman, you said, when in doubt, follow the science. That's what should happen here. As spearfishermen, we're very concerned about conservation and about preservation. We're involved, like clubs like the St. Pete Underwater Club, some of my efforts, and a lot of spearfishermen volunteers. We help shark scientists with their research. We help Goliath grouper scientists with their research. We also are now helping lionfish scientists. We just got a $150,000 grant from NOAA to help lionfish scientists to determine if spearfishing can impact and drive down the population of lionfish to an extent that it could help the reefs. This is the kind of things that spearfishermen are passionate about. We don't feel that we should be discriminated against because our gear type is not popular. We don't want to be discriminated against. It's not like a fish trap issue. That's a gear type that we know is destructive. We are highly selective. We can see what we're spearing, and we have no bycatch. So we are a very environmentally friendly take method. To put this as hook and line only pushes the spearfishermen out of the picture. We need to have serious consideration of that. I'm also very doubtful about the economic indications that you indicated. I listened to the entire meeting the last time, and it kept being brought up. Oh, we're going to get some marketing benefit. Since when is the commission involved in that aspect of marketing tourism to this state? It's really not your primary mandate. So I also looked at other states, and some states are actually rolling back some of the game fish designations. Like in California, they just took or allow spearfishing for the striper, the striped bass. So in closing, I'd like to say, I know there was a lot of talk about these fish being rock stars. So what are we here for? To designate rock stars or punks? Which fish are the punks? Are they the lionfish, the Goliath grouper? We know the Goliath grouper kills a lot of those fish that are on those hooks and lines. Okay, so that must be a punk fish. Let's just dispense with the science, and let's just have an arbitrary way of going around the process, the scientific process. This is what the commission used to do years and years and years ago. I hope that you will not go this path again.
Okay, Tony, let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Quickly. Which of these species think
The-
there's any prohibition to white sea bass or anything else. There currently is already in place a prohibition within the special permit zone.
Yeah.
Permit, but as far as I know, you can still spearfish permit in federal waters, and I don't believe at the end of the day there will be any prohibition to take a permit outside the special permit zone other than what currently exists in the state.
Well, my understanding from Jessica is that that may be the case with this rule here. That's why I came up here.
This is a draft rule for a designation.
Right.
And it recognizes these fish. When we get to what fish go in it and how it might be impacted, I would very much, like to hear, your comments.
So I have two levels of objection. I don't think that, I think permit should continue to be allowed to be speared. There's protections in place for snook and all these things. We're not asking you to roll those back at this point. We're just saying you already have the management. Why do you need to do this designation that's kind of arbitrary, that could then be used, as the vice chairman kind of insinuated, to put other fish in there in the future? I think it's a very slippery slope to go down this path, and we're seriously objecting to it, respectfully. So just remember, follow the science, please.
I moved to the front row to get close for it, so I'll hurry this up. Good afternoon again, Commissioners. I'll try to make this quick as I can. Some of my comments are personally, and some of them are that of CCA, and I will try to identify each. Jeff Miller, State Chairman of CCA Florida, and a businessman out of the locale area. I was at the CCA National Office in Texas about a year ago, walking around their office, looking at all of the nice framed presentations and memorabilia on the wall, and I saw a framed copy of the declaration where Texas had made their official gamefish. And at that time, this was before any of these conversations come up, and I thought, wow, that would really be neat if Florida would do this on their own and identify their species of gamefish and show them recognition as to how important they are to the state. I had no idea that it would cause this much of a stir of emotions and fright and worries and concerns and everything else. So hopefully we can get a lot of this stuff resolved and go back to what my original thoughts were. I personally saw this as a marketing plan that would bring positive results to the state for guides, for boat businesses, for tackle, for everything. And I still see this as nothing but a positive, but I can tell you that there are many questions and concerns from inside our organization as well as outside commercial owners. So I know that this is a touchy situation. I've had phone calls as recently as today about some of the issues. CCA as an organization and several of us individually have had an opportunity to help shape this proposal, had many discussions, and I thank you all and the staff for including us and allowing us to discuss this also. I think we have all seen that anglers are quiet unless they feel that something is being taken away from them. If you have a meeting where you're giving them something back, you get 3 to show up. If they think you're taking something from them, you have 300. And I think that's the same issue we're dealing with here. On these issues, CCA Florida does support the guide's exemption, if you will, or zero bag limit while they're under hire. And we have heard from many guides that this is an issue. Now, trout and already is taken care of. But on trout and redfish, there are guides that have told me that that actually becomes an issue to them where they don't feel that their party should be able to keep their fish. Other guides allow it, and it becomes a bargaining chip on who gets the trick. If a guide has 3 people on the boat, you can't tell me that 15 trout aren't enough for that group to take home. There's no need to keep the other 5. Or that 6 redfish aren't enough in most of the state of Florida, and that they have to have the other 2 for 8. I'm curious to see as this unfolds how the guides themselves feel, but those that we have talked to have been in favor of this, and I was in FWC public hearing in Crystal River where that was voiced very loudly. We feel that something needs to be done in regards to keep a record or near record tarpon that does need to be addressed as we go further. We have discussed the concerns of spearfishing within CCA in regards to permit and do not currently have a position except that CCA is and was in support of current regulation as they stand now. Permit has been the largest species of concern by far in the comments we've heard. If you think about it, snook and redfish pretty much drop into the gamefish category with no changes. Bonefish is already a sport fish in every sense of the word. Tarpon is very close and would require very little change. And while CCA will promote trout as a game fish going forward, I have not heard of a plan or a push to take away any jobs in the immediate future, and we have been discussing, we'll be glad to try to come up with some sort of an acceptable solution on that issue. As a sportsman and a small business owner that services the fishing industry, I see a large benefit to what this program could mean. We talked about and saw a presentation on trophy catch earlier. I see 3 or 4 years down the road where you catch a 30-some-inch redfish that you have to release anyway, but you take a picture of it and send it into FWC, and you get a little, either your picture on a website, or you get a copy of something back, or same thing with large trout. Maybe there's a certificate of recognition for that angler if he catches a trout or redfish and a permit all in the same year, or a bonefish and tarpon. And maybe this causes that angler to hire a guide or go on a weekend fishing trip that'll help everybody out. That's what we're looking at. I'm sorry that there is some of the confusion and the worries out there, but hopefully this thing will proceed and get through. Thank you for your support.
Dennis O'Hearn and Jason Stafford and Gary Singer.
Commissioners, Dennis O'Hearn, Executive Director of Fishing Rights Alliance. Got to take a little exception to previous speakers' out-of-state comments on the state of the boating and fishing industry in Florida. Every residents know pretty well. And I guess I'll be marginalized as a peanut gallery. But with that being said, you know, science leads the way. And what you're looking at here, though I applaud it, I know you're trying to give a badge to some of our fish and make it more special. But what you're overall doing is you're going to limit the opportunity to fish. You want to make all these fish no take. I want to take away my spear gun. I think the spear gun manufacturer would be a little bummed over it. And you've heard from us before, specifically 2 years ago, when we were going to ban spearfishing for permit and Pompano, as you recall. And I recall former Commissioner Barretto and the rest of the commission agreeing that they came to the wonderful conclusion that for harvest, there should be no difference between hook and line and spearfishing gear.
Dennis, what fish do you have in mind when you're concerned about spearfish?
I'm specifically concerned about the former move on permit and pompano, but sir, I'm largely more concerned about creating an umbrella that we can easily move fish underneath. And when you start to throw those gear limitations, to me, honestly, that seems like an end run to get back into a spearfishing mindset, which really was a minority, as you found out before. Again, there's no scientific basis for any of this, and there's not even any trend indicators. Young scientists will tell you. What I'm concerned about is you all do a wonderful job. I've said this before. I think the commission is great. They've done excellent work in the past. So is your staff. The FWRI, you guys have a world-class science division there. World-class, skills top-notch. It seems to me that I know the resources are limited there. I know they're tight on money. They always are. They always will be. And it just seems like the resources that we have that are limited and precious could be focused on a couple of the more pressing needs than we have right now. There's no problem with tarpon. People know they come to tarpon. I mean, if you want to make everything rotate and then just center it all on out-of-state anglers and keys, you're going to blow off those 2 million Florida residents that fish regularly and keep their boats and keep their equipment just like I do, because I have the opportunity to fish. The last year in 2011, I got offshore once. The whole year, once. I still had my boat, still had my fishing license, still had my gear. I think they can buy a new steer gun. You might only use it once. Again, that opportunity to fish is what drives your economic activity. And if we're not scientifically in trouble, if the stock's not in peril, your biologist will even tell you, gee, we think there might be a problem on the horizon, which they usually would do, and you guys would react. Again, we think think you do a great job. I think this is a really bad idea, and especially making anything that you can harvest at discriminating gears between hook and line and spearfishing gear is just plain wrong. If the spearfishing guys want to bring up the ugly, they can really throw some dirt on hook and line fishing, and I don't want that to happen. That's just not right. It's fishing, it's harvest, it's table here, I'm resident, I'm licensed.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
If permit were to remain in this designation as they currently are, that is, currently it's hook and line in the special permit zone in state water. There's no prohibition that I know of for spearfishing in federal waters. And there's no prohibition against spearfishing in state waters outside the So that's currently not allowed. I can't imagine your interest in bonefish tarpon or trout as a spearfish target. So it seems to be primarily permanent. So we can address that if that's what you're concerned with.
But it's not really the permit, it's the concept of being able to just call a fish no take, or as the way you have it now, roll it into the game fish.
Yeah, but there's a difference in hook and line, because you can catch a fish on the hook, handle it, and release it. You can't spear a fish and then release it. So that's why by necessity the gear is hook and line. If you say you're going to make the fish catch and release, you can't catch and release it if it's speared. So that's probably the answer to most of your question, I think.
And I'll let y'all tell me one more thing. If I bought a $50 tarpon tag today, I could kill a tarpon, correct?
No doubt about it.
Why in the world would you not let me harvest that tarpon with a spear gun if I could harvest it? So there's some problems with the regulations right now. I'm not trying to upset the apple cart, but I am afraid to death of an umbrella that will be deployed, but all of a sudden we're going to start seeing
I appreciate that. We just took bears off the threatened list. We currently have gopher tortoises on the threatened list. We have a number of species. Eagles just got delisted. We have a number of species that are receiving special protection that doesn't necessarily mean that other animals will arbitrarily fall into it. So, I mean, I hear where you're coming from, but these are specific fish.
Okay, for the record, I don't want to spear an eagle or a bear.
Hello, Scott Robson from the West Detroit Association. Yes, from my standpoint, I commend your commission for going with its recommendations on these fish. And I know people talk about some examples. We're not having to add fish to this thing, but I'm just going to say that I've been before this commission, I've been before CCA before, and my will Cody fits this perfect. So I know we're later going to talk about what fish you might want to add to this thing, but here's a fishery that's been in trouble for a long time up and down our coast, and I think on the east and west coast. And it's a recreationally caught fish up and down the coast, but it's turned into a great commercial fishery up and down that Gulf Coast. And you know, it's just it's when they're spawning through there, and our stocks are way down. So in that, and in light of all this, I think this is a great thing to look forward, because there is some room for some fish that can't be managed in any other way. Can't get the feds to manage them under those things, and it's a fishery that's been in trouble. I've been in the fishery, the charter fishery, recreational fishery for over.
We're not here to talk about that really, but in terms of the designation.
Okay.
Gary Jarvis. And that actually addresses one of my concerns, is that we start using these categories to drop fish in down the road instead of managing. And they need to have a management plan irrelevant of this designation, and that's what I want to make sure doesn't happen.
Correct.